Greetings and salutations, Glenn Clark.
Remarkable you were able to make it back in time after being up in the Bronx last night.
And I peeled my mustache off.
Right? That's really incredible. Yeah. Really
Well, I was trying to go incognito. Right. I had 40 pounds of stuffing, of stuffed pillows.
And yet, Jim Palmer was able to figure you out. You can't get anything past that guy. You can't.
Well, I texted Jim. By the way, great post today on X or Twitter by Jim Palmer about today being the year anniversary, the passing of Brooks Robinson, and just what he meant to Jim, what he meant to all of us that got a chance to touch Brooks, or just even bask in what it was like to be Brooks Robinson's town, where he played. Anyway, Palmer and Kevin Brown were kidding around about some guy looking Stan the Fan-ish at Yankee Stadium last night. So, and then Jim aptly said, Stan doesn't travel much, partly because of the huge budgets we have at Press Box.
Right.
So about 10 minutes go by, and I've gotten 7 or 8 texts from people, and Griffin was kind enough to send it to me, because ironically, I was on the phone with Gary Stein
as it was happening,
and I didn't hear it. So I had somebody, one of the owners of Press Box, and then Griffin and a couple other friends. So about 10 minutes go by, I said, I just want to let Palmer know that I'm back home in Baltimore.
Here. Right, not you.
Baltimore. I said, I'm at my home. He goes, we deem that you were much fitter than that guy.
So you got that going.
Yeah, by about 35 pounds.
You got that going for you, which is good. Well, it's good to see you. We're going to get into picks. Picks are always made possible by 1-800-GAMBLER. No-cost treatment is now available for anyone wanting help with a gambling problem. My gambling problem is that I'm not winning right now. That's my problem.
I think we might be the best thing for 1-800-GAMBLER is that these guys are giving such bad advice that I'm not going to bet on any games right now. Glenn, I've got you, and I apologize, seriously. I've got a piece of paper now. You know how I usually keep the records.
Meticulously.
Well, the records have disappeared from my home. I have
got some questions about that.
I think a person wants information on football games.
Yeah, this sounds a little bit about like Maricopa County to me. It sounds like you might be making some stuff up, that maybe you're inviting some illegals to come in.
That's exactly right. So between now and next week, I'm going to go back and watch all the videos and make sure I got everything correct.
And I think look, I know I've had a miserable season. I know.
Well, I've got you at 2-7. You think there's a chance you're 3-6.
Well, no, I think it's possible. I just think I thought we had the reverse order. I think you might be right that I'm 2. It might be that bad.
I think you went 0-3 the first week. And then you've gone 1-2.
I think
which is a trend of improvement.
It is improvement. It's better. 100%.
I went 1-2, then I went 2-1, and then I went 1-2 again.
I didn't remember you having a winning week. That's unbelievable. You had a winning
week. Unbelievable.
All right.
My big thing so far is I'm 3-0 on Ravens.
You are. That is correct. 3-0 on Ravens games. I'm just 1-2 on Ravens games so far, and that's been the difference. So why don't we start with the Ravens game, Stan?
Why don't we start there? And what is the current spread given to us each week by FanDuel?
2.5 is the number for Sunday night. Ravens, Bills in Baltimore. Ravens, despite the fact that the Bills have looked like world beaters the first 3 weeks of the season, Ravens are favored at home by 2.5 for the Sunday night football game. So Stan, in 3, 2, 1, and
I'm taking the Buffalo Bills because the Ravens can win this game by 1-2.
They could.
I'd be right. And I think with Justin Tucker kicking the way he is, which is hard to believe we're talking about that as an issue. I think this game, if this were 2.5 and it was regular Justin Tucker, I'd have no problem taking the Ravens in this football game. I'm also, Glenn, this year, the reason I'm 3-0, is partially, I know this is heavy duty analysis because I know you come up and really have stats backing what your predictions are. I am saying that I'm picking sort of against the normal team I would take.
Okay.
I was inclined to take the Ravens.
Okay.
And I said, you know what? That's why I'm wrong like 12 out of 17 games on the Ravens.
So let's try to steal.
I think the Ravens are going to win this game at home.
Okay.
But I think it's going to be a very close game, and I'm taking the Bills.
I'm not.
The 2.5.
I'm not confident about anything related to this game. I will tell you that my sort of mixing it up this week is all three of my picks will be games that the smarts picked. That the smart money is gone on all three of the games that I'm picking this week. They were my picks, but I went to check to see what the smarts were doing, and so I used that to back it up. The smart money is on the Ravens, which is weird to me, given how good the Bills have looked. The two things that stand out. The Bills, everybody thinks about Josh Allen being the story. The truth is the Bills have actually, what's been different this year is that they've been using the run to set up the pass.
Yeah.
And the one thing that you'd be confident about the Ravens defensively right now is their ability to stop the run. So then make them one-dimensional, and they don't have the way that the Cowboys had CeeDee Lamb, the way that the Raiders had Devontae Adams. There is no such target for the Bills to turn to that can just overwhelm the Ravens matchup-wise. Now, the Ravens have struggled against tight ends this season, and obviously Dalton Kincaid is a very good one. So that is a matchup that concerns me. But I do think it's a little bit of a different story for the Bills if they're forced to be a bit more one-dimensional because they don't have the same options at wide receiver that they've had in the past, and other teams haven't been able to force them to be one-dimensional. The other thing that jumps out at me, Bills love to blitz. They love to blitz. And if there's one thing the Ravens do very well, it's actually what they do against blitzing teams. They kind of force teams to come off the blitz. So the question will be, do the Bills change their strategy coming into the game? Or do the Ravens, are they able to take advantage of a Bills team that's over-aggressive with their blitzing? So those are the two biggest storylines to me to see how they play out. The smarts like the Ravens here, so I'm going to continue to line up with the Ravens.
The continuing problems with Justin Tucker, and I'm not giving up on him at all.
Yep.
I mean, I think he'll figure it out. I don't know.
No, but in the margins, to say that could be the difference in this being a 5-point game or a 2-point game or a 4-point game and a 1-point game, I get it.
But the combination of how well Buffalo is playing is also a factor here. And one thing that the Ravens don't do real well is contain quarterbacks that can run. It seems whenever there's a clutch moment in a game against Kansas City or Buffalo, the quarterback can run for 8 or 9 yards to get that big first down and not get them off the field. Another factor, though, that would speak in the Ravens' behalf is that they've got to do something about this penalty situation. And you'd like to think that John Harbaugh, in some way, shape, or form, and his staff will impress upon his team that, hey, we ain't going anywhere if we keep having penalties. And we can argue that a couple of the calls, like that one in the end zone, was terrible. Last week. Was it last week?
2 weeks. 2 weeks ago was the pass interference in the end zone.
Yeah.
Last week there was the phantom roughing the passer, which
that was terrible. That was terrible. So we can argue one, but generally when they show the replays, the Ravens are
they've been a good number.
So anyway, I like the Bills plus 2.5, but I think the Ravens can come away with a win here.
All right, Stan, you had the first pick this week.
My lock, it's really interesting. I'm taking all games where I'm picking sort of against the spread. In other words, I like the Washington Commanders. And I will tell you that one of the key things I usually get wrong is I put too much on one game. I was so impressed with how they played last week because I took the Bengals minus the 6.5. And a lot of times the next week I jump on the opposition because of how impressed I was. And I double down and I'm wrong again. I'm so impressed with the quarterback for the Commanders.
Yep.
He's very Lamar-like in some things, but one thing he's very different in, he can hit a long ball. He can throw the ball. And I like the way the Commanders are playing. They're at Arizona, which is a tough ask, but they're getting 3.5 points. And I don't think Arizona If I'm wrong, then I'm going to get tallywhacked here, as Ross Grimsley would say, and they'll lose by 2 touchdowns. But I think they keep this game close, and I think they can win the football game.
So this is an eternal trap game to me for Washington. Like this is the eternal letdown. They get this unbelievable emotional victory and everybody's buying into them, and they always this is what happens. At 3.5, though, I get it. At 3.5, it's the scenario where they could still lose the game. But then come away with the cover. And given the lack of faith we have in Arizona, I fully understand.
I also look, I'm not predicting the Commanders are going to be even in the playoffs. Okay. Although the Giants in Dallas look pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a new day, and I hear you on the trap game. But I'm counting on Dan Quinn. He seems to have a little something going there, mojo-wise now. And I think if it was a better team than Arizona, I might be in line with you and pick a totally different game. But I think Washington getting 3.5 in Arizona is a fairly good value.
All right. My lock winner is a team that is favored despite the fact that they're facing an undefeated darling early in the NFL season. I'm going with the Green Bay Packers. 2.5-point favorites at home is my lock winner over the Vikings. The expectation is that Jordan Love is back this week for the Packers. Not that they were in all that much trouble with Malik Willis. He did a nice job for them as Jordan Love was out the last couple of weeks. But I think this is another one of those. I don't know what the look-ahead line would have been before the season began, but I'm going to guess it would have been something in the neighborhood of 5.
Yeah.
4.5, 5, something like that. And so I think you're actually getting a couple of points here based on how the first few weeks have gone. I might be the guy that ends up going to my deathbed not believing in the Vikings. I'm still apprehensive about that. I think there have been good things from Sam Darnold, but every time we try to talk ourselves into this being a renaissance moment for a quarterback, 2 weeks ago, it was a renaissance for Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was the MVP of the league, and he might still have a very good season, right? But I think
he did come back to earth against Denver.
Very much came back to earth. And I think there's going to be a comeback to earth moment for Sam Darnold in the coming weeks. And I also just like the Packers getting Jordan Love back. I think that they're a very good football team. And I think they'll be more capable of scoring points than they were. They had a very different system in for Malik Willis than they will for Jordan Love. So the Packers,
yeah, I think it's an interesting football game. It's not one that jumped out at me either way. My lean was Green Bay, and I guess my feelings about Darno are somewhat similar to yours. We'll see if he can keep it going. If he keeps it going, you're going to lose your bet.
Yep, 100%. No doubt about it. But yeah, Green Bay, my lock winner.
All right. My lock loser, I was very impressed with Raheem Morris's Atlanta Falcons squad last week. They played very tough against Kansas City. Of course, they were home, so they had the home field advantage, but I thought they played them tooth and nail for 85-90% of that football game. And I think if that team shows up, and again, I think they're at home against the New Orleans Saints. I think the Saints came back to earth, which I fully expected, but I didn't pick that game last week. I like Atlanta. I like the New Orleans Saints getting 1.5 points. I think Atlanta will win the game by more than that, making the New Orleans Saints. I like the fit of Kirk Cousins on this Atlanta team. I'm not a huge Kirk Cousins fan, but I thought his failing last week was more about who he was playing against. I don't think he's a real big game quarterback, but this is the kind of game, to me, he wins.
I do. There's something about Sunday afternoon Kirk Cousins. There's no question about that. And I do like this game. I am still convinced, though, that at some point this season, there's going to be a quarterback controversy in Atlanta. That like the limitations, the fact that they felt the need to run a stretch run on 4th and inches because they couldn't have Kirk Cousins go get them a foot himself. I do think that that day will come at some point this season where they drafted a first-round quarterback and folks down there are going to want to see him. But yeah, I like this game, and I actually would have agreed with you on that. My lock loser for the week. This is we talk about overreacting to 1 week, and I think some people are going to say you're overreacting to what you saw from the Panthers last week in Andy Dalton's first start. It's a little bit that, but it's a lot of how bad the Bengals are defensively. The Bengals are a bad defensive football team, and we knew they were coming into the season in the secondary. They've been a bad overall defensive team in general this season. And this is not me saying that I don't think they can win in Carolina on Sunday, because that's still Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and I think they're going to get it figured out. But it's me saying there's no reason why they should be 4.5-point favorites on the road. They have not done anything that says that they should be a 4.5-point road favorite. You throw in that's an Andy Dalton revenge game potentially. Sure, I guess I don't know. Andy Dalton is 46-35, 57% winner as an underdog in his career. And then I'll add in, it's actually been a bad season on the whole for 4.5-point favorites. Anybody favored, this is a crazy stat to me so far this season, Stan. Dogs of 4.5 points or more all season long are 15-6 against the spread.
That's nice.
Teams are not covering big spreads. And I looked at the
I always find out these trends after, and then I'll.
Yeah. Well, you didn't pick big games. You didn't pick any big numbers this week. No. It has not been a good season for big favorites this year. Big favorites just simply have not covered, and there is nothing to me about the Cincinnati Bengals that suggests they should be a big favorite. I have no problem with them 2.5 points or less. I'm away from this game, but there is no reason to me why they should be more than a field goal favorite on the road in Carolina. They've just not done anything particularly their defense. I get they played Kansas City tough. I understand that, but their defense has been a real problem. Remember, they didn't force a single punt or turnover on Monday night against Washington.
Yeah, that was a dismal performance by them.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that part of it was because they caught a football team that's on the rise.
Way up, right.
But we'll see. That's a game I wouldn't have touched either way. Don't like it. But there's no way in the world I could have picked Carolina, even getting 4.5 to win that, to cover that game. Well, I just don't like the game.
We will see.
Let me recap quickly. Again, unofficially, that's how I'll say it, Glenn, until I do my research. Glenn Clark is 2-7 through 3 weeks. Stan the Fan.
Killing it.
Is 4-5. I'm killing it, man.
Killing it.
Together, Glenn and I are 6-12. That's a great winning percentage.
Got to step our game up.
We got to step our game up, and we intend to this week.
No doubt.
Glenn Clark is sticking with the home team, the Ravens -2.5. I like Buffalo to cover, but think there's room for the Ravens to win the game, and I'm just uncomfortable enough with how Tucker's kicking the football that I think this is going to be a close one. Glenn's lock winner is the Green Bay Packers at home, -2.5 over the Minnesota Vikings. Glenn is not certain that the real Sam Darnold has shown up, and the real Jordan Love does show up this week. So he's taking Green Bay as his lock winner. I am getting on the skateboard of the Washington Commanders. They're getting 3.5 points against Kyler Murray. I know he's played well this year, Glenn, but you know how I feel about him. So I like the Washington Commanders as my lock winner, getting 3.5 points. I think they have a real shot at an outright upset here. Glenn's lock loser is those Cincinnati Bengals, -4.5. Glenn thinks Carolina, partly the revenge factor and partly because how bad the Bengals defense has played. He likes Cincinnati giving 4.5 to not cover that spread and be his lock loser. My lock loser is the New Orleans Saints, who go in. They came back to earth a little bit last week against the Eagles and coughed up a late lead. I was impressed with Atlanta last week, and Atlanta's only giving 1.5 points. So I made New Orleans my lock loser. I think the Falcons win this game by 5 to 7 points, somewhere in that neighborhood.
All right, Stan, of course, we pull these numbers from FanDuel, and I am going to be inside Sports and Social at the FanDuel Sportsbook tonight, hanging out for the baseball game starting at 7, and then the first half of the football game as well. Hope you guys will come hang out with me this evening inside Sports and Social. We got great giveaways for you, including some free rounds of golf, some Royal Farms gift cards, some swag from the Sports and Social and Live Casino and Hotel. And also Joe Serpico, our PressBox fantasy football analyst, is going to be there doing personalized consultations for your fantasy football team. So just bring over your phone, sit down.
It's like Joe is like reading a crystal ball. You tell him about your team.
Yeah, he's gonna look over. It's not just, I think a lot of people, we get used to like call in and you can get a start sick. He's gonna spend time with you. Like, hey, let's look over the roster. Let's look at what you've got coming up for bye weeks. Let's look at other teams in your league and maybe some trades that you could propose that would improve your roster. These are personal fantasy football consultations. This is not a 5-second, who do I play Sunday?
That's like the credit card commercial. It's priceless.
Yes, it is. There is real value to this. This is someone who's going to help solve your fantasy football team. So that'll start 7:00 tonight, Live Casino in Hotel Maryland, inside Sports and Social. So come hang out with us tonight. And I know you've had a busy week this week, Stan.
Had a busy week up to this point. Did a show on Monday with Ross and Luke, and we did Eric Garfield yesterday. I don't know when we're releasing that video, whether it's today or tomorrow, but grabbed Kevin Rocklitz, who's a senior vice president of the Baltimore Ravens and the head of all their sales operations. And we had him on to talk about the renovations at the stadium and what's in store for next year as well. It was a really interesting 25-minute conversation. Be back with Luke and Ross on Monday. No secondary show this week of any kind. Eric and I are taking some time off through the end of the World Series. Then we're going to do monthly in November and December. And I'll be back the following week with another guest where Gary Stein is sitting in with me.
Very good.
With Kevin Rocklitz.
And I will tell you that actually that show is available now already at facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or PressBoxOnline.com/video.
And one more thing, because I know Gary's doing it. He's scratching our back. We're scratching his. Gary's a new voice at WCBM, doing morning sports from 6:05 to 12:05 at the top and the bottom of each hour.
There you go.
He's doing a good job over there.
There you go.
On your radio.
All right. You'll be in with me tomorrow morning. We'll be getting you ready for Ravens Bills. Our friend A.Q. Shipley, former Ravens offensive lineman. He's now part of the Pat McAfee show. He's going to be joining us, talk about the Ravens O-line. What else are we doing tomorrow? I think Carlos Pena is going to be joining us tomorrow. Missed him last week. So got a busy show scheduled for tomorrow. Stan will be in with me on GCO.
And Griffin's got that tape saved.
Yes, the most important part, no doubt. All right, Stan.
Thanks, Glenn. Talk to you soon.